I am calling meeting number 1638 to order at 6:05 on the 1st of December 2022. Thank you all for being present. Okay, do we have any movements that needs to take place? All right. Okay, please be cognizant that the people out there, we want them to be able to hear things. Elizabeth, others, if something comes up, signal us if you can't hear. All right. Great, got it. Let's start with approval of the minutes of our last meeting, 1637. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Okay, that was Art. We have a second, and we have a second from Dennis. Do we have any corrections on that?
I believe
Carl?
so.
Well, I just have, I have a question. Did we get this? I see it for the first time now.
Yeah, you got
That's,
it.
No, we did get the minutes,
48 hours.
like Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't.
It's in your Southern Berkshire email.
I didn't get it. But if everybody got it, then my comment only applies to me, and that is,
So please check back, because we want to address if there is a problem. But no, definitely.
okay, because it's 8 pages and in between
Yes, yes,
the
yes, yes,
motion and
Yeah.
my approving it.
yes. No, we definitely received it. Because I went through like
Okay, yeah,
anything.
I didn't.
Okay, David.
Yeah. Under part B, in the business manager's report, insurance appraisal. At the end of that, I think we should add, increase to 100% of value, because that's what they're talking about there, and it's not clear from the notes here.
I think
That's the
Fine.
second paragraph.
yes, I see what you're saying. That's a decision that we have to make, so we would have to get that recommendation. It was not said at that point, from what I remember, that he never said 100% of that.
Okay.
Yeah, anything else that you have?
I think that was, oh yeah, under section 11, director of curriculum, paragraph 2, it says PLA programs in the middle of that after grades 6 through 8 fall 2022. That should
Yes.
be ELA, shouldn't it?
Yes, thank you for that. Patch. Okay, any others?
That's all done.
Anybody else? Okay, in that case, with the amendment, thank you, sir. I will take a vote to approve. Nancy. Carl.
Abstain.
Oh, right, because you didn't,
Well,
Sarah.
I haven't had a chance. to
Right,
read it, so-
exactly, Sarah. Approved. Okay, Dennis. Art,
Yes.
Bonnie, I, Kyle,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Abstain.
Okay. Poor Kim has been having trouble with her emails, and I'm like, okay, she either hates my guts, or she's sorry she ever came here to the school committee. We found out it's a technical problem. So we have 8 approvals and 2 abstentions, therefore, obviously. The minutes
I
are
thought the
passed.
minutes were really well done too. I don't know who the last minute taker was, but
Yeah, it was, they were
Fabulous
really
job.
clear. Thank you. for
that is,
doing that. All right, let's move on, Beth, to enrollment.
So in your packet, it is 2B. So we have an increase of 1 student. I will say just Lynette did send out the requested additional information as I suspected, and we're still working on the choice because that's not really going to be available until closer to January, most likely. But just for this time, she put in more data. This is what you would get in October, but she thought she'd give it to you guys again, just because it's your second meeting. So you could, see some of the additional reporting that she does.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, so, but, we probably won't get that all the time, because it takes a lot of extra, but, you will get the first one, just going forward.
No,
Okay.
that's fine. I would have been happy with last year's. I just wanted some basis for comparison, so thank you.
Mhm. Well, we actually, this color chart
Mhm.
is something we had asked for, so that it gives us a way to see retaining of students
Right.
as they move through grades. So
Yeah.
please thank Lynette for this. All right, anything else? And I love that our numbers are where they are. That's my editorializing on this topic. Okay. Anybody else on the enrollment issue? Not an issue. Okay, moving on. We have a student representative report.
So no miscellaneous questions.
Oh, Miss Lake, yeah.
That's okay, I just wanted to mention.
No, go ahead.
Is our students?
No.
I think so, right? Okay. I know,
No.
it's terrible. I
There's no
can't
student.
even- there's
Yeah,
no-
oh, good, that it's not my eyes.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be one, so.
Okay. We might be a little behind on that, so we'll see how it works out.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Absolutely.
Is there a student or students who are
Yeah.
denominated as student representatives?
Yeah.
And are they aware that they are not required, but expected to give a report at each meeting? So if they don't, something happens.
Right, and they always are. And
Right,
also,
right.
the way
It might be a
Jesse,
conflict or,
Jesse, you can explain it, how it was done in terms of who the student participant would be physically.
Sure, I mean, it's.
Just so that you know, one of the overall, this is really for new people. There is supposed to be a student representative on the school committee. And because of all the enormous amount of work and activities, everything, we had decided that Jesse would work with, through elections to make sure it wouldn't have to be one person who had to show up for this all the time. With that, I turn it back to you.
Yeah, we had it as part of our student elections, and so there are 4 representatives. Unfortunately, on some of these nights, and Thursday's one of those nights, when kids are involved in other activities, sports, theater, and some of the things they do outside of school, there are nights that are something at some year. And so, there was only one person tonight who was available, and, as I ran out the door at 2:45, he told his advisor, I'm gonna have something going on tonight, I'll do the best I can to get out. And so, we were hoping he was gonna be able to jump on. If he does, we definitely can go to him. And if he doesn't, I apologize.
And if you see him and I'm not paying attention, please signal.
We will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, do we have a student spotlight?
we do not, we were going to have one, but, Mr. Miller is a little under the weather, so he did not bring his group today, so. But that's okay, we will make up for it next time.
I'm sure, and we could tell Mr. Miller we all wish him a speedy
We
recovery.
just did, yes, that's great.
Okay, public comment. Okay, I do not see any hands raised. Therefore, the business manager's report.
So they actually had no reports, for this meeting, and the quotes that we were looking for the insurance will not be ready until the next meeting, so they're working on them, so. I told them he didn't really have to get on for. I could do that.
Okay, boy,
That happens sometimes, though. so
hey, every once in a while,
We pick up some time.
exactly. All right. Business with district member towns. Update on regional school district planning board. Do we have any comments from members of the school committee before I give any updates?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
I would like to know approximately on the event that happened, I believe it was today.
Mhm.
How many attended
You mean yesterday?
yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think it was I'm not sure I know every section, but I feel like there was probably in total around 20, I would say maybe 7 community members, but some of them were here, so they can speak what they want.
So the rest was staff.
That's how it was scheduled. It was in 3 blocks. It was, they requested that breakout, so it was community, staff who they hadn't met with previously, and students. So, and they stopped in after the meeting and said that they thought that that was a fabulous turnout. So,
7 from the community.
No, there were, I think there were 9 or so.
it was a
whatever.
drop in, so it
It
was a
was
give and take.
not, it was not that.
But I did ask them, just in general, in these sessions, these participation sessions, whether it was student, staff, or outside people, was it equal between the districts for participation? And it was. They were, and they seemed thrilled with it. I think it's small, but I'll take any opportunity for people to share what they're thinking about. But I feel like we're doing okay if, a group that's larger than us is having about the same response. So people are busy, and it's tricky, so.
They are holding another meeting the 10th, Saturday morning from 9 to 12. If you go to 8towns.org, it is on, the invite is on the very front page. You will have to use the QR code, or you can use a link in order to register. There will be no drop-ins for that one. So I think it's really important that we do whatever we can to encourage people to come to that.
Should we talk
There's
about?
a maximum of 50. I'm sorry, Beth.
No, I'm just saying, I just want to be clear on what that 10th looks like. Is the 10th the beginning of the steering committee? Because they've kind of had a little bit of a mixed message about what they started as listening sessions, right? And then you noticed my note to the community, it said like they're almost a little focus group. Now they're looking for part of this invitation said, we're looking for members to volunteer for the steering committee. So I'm just not sure if they're synthesizing what's been happening at these on the 10th and or starting the steering committee, or, I'd like a little bit more of a clear,
Okay, what was explained, and maybe.
because you were at this other
yes,
meeting today.
maybe either Dennis, who was there, or Kyle, who was there, can say what they said the 10th will be. I'll get to you. I don't think you will. The 10th will be is an opportunity for community members to speak. And they have, it's these are 2 consultants from the Bar Foundation. It's from the $50,000 grant from the Bar Foundation. People will be able to speak, raise questions, etc. Beth, what you just brought up at the very end of yesterday's meeting, they were asking if you're interested, did they wrote you? They were asking.
They said, well, I'd be willing to give my email. I said, sure.
Yeah.
Email.
So it wasn't right, it wasn't totally clear at that point. The actual gathering itself was just gathering feedback during that meeting. And my understanding on the 10th is that what they will be doing as well. Nancy,
Is that in person or is it,
it's in person
at the Jack,
and,
at the Jack?
and no, I'm just trying
Oh,
to find.
I think it's a
it.
Sheffield Senior Center.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're right.
Um,
I remember that.
Which is right, for those of you who may not know, the Sheffield Senior Center it's right off of Route 7 on Cook Road. So
here
you
it
go
is.
past you have it?
Yeah, the Legion Hall.
Did I
Opposite the
say that?
American.
Oh, yeah, oh,
Legion.
yes, thank you, yeah. It says, the educational visioning consultants will be holding a gathering in person on December 10th. Are you interested? Here's the flyer. It says,
Mhm.
so it's an educational visioning session, explore the possibility of regionalizing our 2 community high schools. It's a listen, learn, and share. Sheffield Senior Center, Saturday, December 10th, 9 to noon. And you register or with a little
QR
QR
code.
code.
Or there's a link for those people who cannot use QR
There's a link,
codes.
I apologize. But that's what they're saying. So that's what this is as opposed to the steering committee.
Yeah, exactly. So it was only at the end they brought, and you don't have to stay obviously the whole time. It's a drop-in type of thing. Next.
And there's the question came up of, open meeting laws, as members of the school committee, does that affect us?
I had a long discussion with Carl about this, and he will explain.
Okay.
You, basically, if you attend this, you're attending as an individual citizen.
Right.
We are not in any way allowed to engage in deliberation while we're there. We are not to send chain emails. Carl's gonna walk us through
Okay,
everything.
great, thank you. I think
But
that's
as a
really
citizen-
important. I think that's
Right.
right.
As a citizen, you are definitely, that's the only reason I showed up yesterday, after consulting with a great legal mind.
Who was that? Someone not- someone not here.
Question.
Okay, Dennis,
Yeah, for what it's worth, I've had at least two people that have approached me about this thing on the 10th. And they thought it was going to be actually in the American Legion building.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
so there's obviously some confusion out in the world about where's it gonna
about
be?
everything,
Yeah.
but it is.
Well, there's a flyer there.
Right.
That's gonna clear it up.
And because they will have to register, they will get a confirmation which will show where it is. And it's open to anybody from any of the 8 towns in terms of that. So just to follow up, because I just got out of communications meeting, let me turn pages here. One, they just found out today that they were awarded, there were thanks to you, Beth.
Oh, that's nice.
The community compact grant for $125,000. And Beth had a major role in putting that grant together. Peter was there as well, but this means there will not be at this point the ask for money from elsewhere. And Jake anticipates that we will be noted, the paperwork will all be done so that we will have, meaning the regional planning board, will have the money by the start of January, and it must all be spent, not even spent by the end of October. So
2023.
the plan is that the whole thing was submitted under regionalization and efficiencies for the school districts. And the plan is it will be used a lot for public relations because of all the confusion out there. It will be used for educational visioning. It will be used for consultants as needed. And Beth, was there anything else that was in the grant that you were aware of?
I don't think so. I think that's, they really wanted to do that other visioning work, which
Right.
some of us are on the fence about the need for that. But yeah, I think that's really it.
So that was just, you're among the very first to know because that just came through this afternoon. And let's see, additionally, there is now, in addition to the video that existed where Lucy Frashker talks about the overall program, they just posted a much shorter CBTE video. So again, 8towns.org, you'll be able to see that 8 to 10 minute video, which I think it's important for, this is editorializing, I think it's important for all of us to look at. So that is a base, for Kim, Jim, Kyle, I'm already on a committee. Carl, I have a request from Lucy that you pick out one of the subcommittees to serve on. So either finance, if you're interested, community outreach or operations are the three major ones. There was a request, Jim, if you would be willing to serve on community outreach, because there is no one from Egremont on that committee. So you don't have to, if you're interested in one or the others.
Why me specifically?
Guess where you live?
In Egremont, there's nobody on the committee from Egremont.
The man is brilliant. You don't have to pick that, but that was, the request was there. Nancy,
What about me for New Marlboro, or is that Tara? It's Tara covering New Marlboro.
Comes to all of them.
well, you are the official person,
On the board, yeah, but I don't, not on a subcommittee.
but you have to pick a subcommittee.
All right, and then I give that to you.
You can give it directly to Lucy as well as me, or you give it to me if all of you pick them out, and then I'll send them to Lucy to make sure that it's covered.
So email you or? email-
Yeah, if you email me, that's fine, just if you have any luck. Or Kim.
I'll get this.
Or you can just tell me, if you know what you want to go on, if you know you want finance
Well, either that or operation.
or operations, so let me put down one of those two, and then you don't mind if Lucy says we think should be better here.
That's
Okay, so Kim. Finance or operations,
And what is
Jim,
operation?
Yeah, the hours.
you don't have to.
No,
it's just a
no.
request.
Ancillary
it's fine.
services.
Okay, Jim. Community outreach,
Think she wanted to know what operations.
If
was.
I understood more about operations, is that the ancillary service?
Things like the transportation, you know, this food service, like all the
build
building operations, all of, not just facilities, but operations.
I wouldn't be afraid of it because you ask good questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess that.
Yeah.
This subcommittees for the planning.
Yes,
board?
For the planning board.
Wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Nancy, are you selecting operations?
I'm good for operations, why not?
Mhm.
I do ask good questions.
You do. Carl?
I'm gonna discuss it with Lucy.
Okay, and then you'll pick one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I'm gonna ask for her guidance and what she
Okay,
thinks.
and then you'll just let me know, so I know that we're done with that. Truthfully, this is my editorializing here. I think since you've gone through so many of the issues related to regional agreements, and you've also dealt so much with finance, I would say you would be really welcome on either finance or operations. I think you need, I would hope you would lead to one of those
Okay, I'll take that under
after you
advisement.
speak with her. Okay, so just let me know. And I forgot, the fourth one. Education. There's an education subcommittee, so any of you will prefer that instead.
I would love to do that, but I think operations. well, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Education would be my preference, actually. But
yes, it would.
yeah, I
Okay,
mean, unless you really think I would be brilliant in my questions for operations.
well. you'd
Thanks,
also be-
Jim.
You'd also be,
I think
Right,
that
with that
education
education.
subcommittee is short. in
It's
comparison
really
to
short.
Membership than other places.
exactly.
Well, and
I
that's
think
where-
I'm about the only one left on it.
Well, that's my strength.
Right, okay, so Nancy, we're doing education, Carl's gonna let us know. We have Jim for community outreach, Kim will do either one of those, and, we're set. And then operations. Okay, good. So that's it in that area. I just want to bring up one other thing, Beth, and maybe you could check with Lynette on this. There were people today who at this meeting who expressed the fact that they would love it. And I thought we had done this is even before your time, that our outreach list, when you send information out we had at one point decided, I think it was while Paul was chair, that we wanted, in addition to parents, that like friends of the Southern Berkshire Regional School District, so that other people could get the information when it's a community based.
So in my time, I'm not aware of that. However, I think it would be you best to ask Mr. Thompson how he
Okay.
set that up. The only thing that I know, because I sometimes get surprising calls from people after they get my message. I thought, well, I'm not sure why you forget my message. But I think you can request to be added to the
Right.
list. So if an individual, sometimes the radio station asks, can I get your messages or whatever? So if they do that, usually we'll add them into the list, but I don't know if there was you just wrote to friends of or something like that. I don't know.
Well, maybe we could put that on
So I'll just
Sure.
ask him how he's done.
community outreach meeting.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And figure this out, because this was a major request. And
Well, I mean, I think the problem was whether or not you're selecting them in the group when I do an all message, right? Sometimes
Okay.
I'm doing an emergency for who's in the building to the
Yeah,
parents
that's
versus,
different,
so
exactly.
there needs to be a different group where those people would be.
okay,
added.
well, that's gonna be, if you can figure that, and I wanted to confirm, every child who is registered in our district is the family is on that list.
If they choose, they can opt out.
Ah,
Just so you know, families can choose to not get any of that communication if they don't want it, so. There are people who do that.
okay, thank you for that answer. So that's where we stand. There was, and here I would suggest everybody take a look at eighttowns.org. There was a finance committee, subcommittee meeting the day before yesterday. Now, Peter Dillon saved,
No, finance was last night.
oh, that was like, you see how my days are going?
do.
Peter Dillon saved me, because I said I was mathematically ignorant. He gave me a better term for it, but basically, I am accounting blocked.
I think he said math phobic.
But that's it. He said I was math phobic.
I
But
agree with
I-
that,
Excuse me?
I agree with that, by the way, that's a good diagnosis.
Oh, it's definitely, I'm barely made it out of calculus. But I think the important thing is the first part of the budget's approach was presented. And what they did, and I have to say, I was really impressed by the way it was approached. They went through only the operations part of a potential budget for the 8 towns. And there are the different scenarios, and all the complete deck of information was posted to 8 town, or it was supposed to be to 8towns.org. Him and others who are not accounting phobic might be able to go through and take a look. What happened was, when they ran the numbers initially, it came out that it really hurt our district. Then they figured another way, and it hurt Berkshire Hills. So they found another way, and this is just the operations part, where the assessments that are being suggested under the 8 towns comes out to be a much fairer. So what I liked is all the towns were listening to each other and putting this together. This doesn't mean in any way it's final. It doesn't take into account capital costs. It doesn't take anything else. But for those who are not immersed in finance, it really takes time to learn this. And I think it behooves all of us to start looking at it so we can ask questions. And you can get all of that on 8towns.org. Okay, I think that's enough from me on the member towns. On my chairman's report piece, I'm gonna make that really brief. given more and more of the feedback that I've heard as part of what we're doing in the picture, I am asking that we each, and I promise you I will do it, I've had a gazillion little blurbs about ourselves and with 2 or 3 sentences additionally, what you hope to be able to accomplish on the school committee, so that our communities get a better sense of who we are. As Kyle pointed out, you know, you could have 5 write-in votes and just sitting here. So we want people to know who we are. And I don't want to take much additional time, but that's where we're heading. Carl,
Has it been, I know that this was brought up at our first meeting, our first meeting post-election day. And I asked if we thought it was a better idea to have that done orally during a meeting or in writing and posted on the website. And I expressed my opinion that I thought it was better if we do it orally, because people who watch, it's easier to watch than to read generally.
well, I really like that idea. I think we should do both.
Okay,
Because we have, I know that this is not the #1 thing after Dancing with the Stars or whatever that is. But a lot of people don't see it, and I think it behooves for all of us that we know who we are. So I would say orally, and if we're not running really late, we could probably even do it today. But I think the written one, because that becomes part of Beth's vision for outreach, and that we're able to make more people aware. So if you're willing, I'd like to do a combo. Take it.
You said write a blurb about yourself. What exactly do you have in mind? It's like one of them, it's like a paragraph.
I'm saying a 3 to 4 sentence
Okay,
paragraph
so-
that's gives a sense of your background, you know, or
Right, okay.
strength,
Because
whatever.
it
That's
seemed
it.
like you were saying blurb and 3 sentences, and I wasn't sure
No,
what you
the
actually.
blurb is who you are, and then maybe 2 sentences about what you're going to be bringing or what you hope to accomplish on the school committee. Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, so, today I started with, Julie and I attended the 3rd session of the READY work, that we're doing with the state, which is, the, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work, which is just been a tremendous experience, minus the lots of time in the car. But we did our 3rd session with, now we're gonna be broken out into, different groups based on our level of interest in the work. And we have a capstone meeting April 27th, where all of the 150 of us from the state who are participating come back and talk about the 5 or 6 different affinity groups that we're working in from now until then, plus the work that we've been doing. So it's really been tremendous, and I'm actually hoping that we could do a little bit of this work in a workshop with the school committee. I think that's really important. And it talks about, we should be talking about our whys, you're talking about your whys, and we can't expect other people to be doing this work or creating this culture of belonging for everybody if we don't model it ourselves. So I'm hoping we can work something out as a joint effort. As everybody has talked about, this week was chock full. I like to give an update of how many meetings we've had this week for the week after Thanksgiving. So it was great to see those of you who got on for your respective roles on the different meetings. There is, as Bonnie said, a tremendous amount of data, and I really hope people will start digging in. I know for myself, it's really almost going to be a full-time job to go through the different assessment formulas. It looks like people have had some head start on that, and it kind of is a little bit of my thing too. So I really want to get in and look at these formulas because I'm curious. I must say, I just have to kind of say it off the cuff, is it was really interesting because when we present a budget every year, it is we always try to go in with a very efficient and effective number. And people were throwing out numbers that I would never walk in the door with, and our towns were all for it. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not against that. I think that's a wonderful thing. It's just a completely different thought process than I've experienced in my time here. So I think, whatever people are willing to spend on education, but I thought part of the reason we were doing this is to ensure that not only we have a great educational experience, but that we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way. So it's kind of interesting. I think for those who are not into numbers and really into looking at that, this is a good time to start really looking at what these new assessment formulas are, what they're saying, what they're thinking that impact could be, because the example they used yesterday was that, a baseline, every town would be looking at a 4%. That's a big number, of something that we haven't delivered in a long time. So it's kind of a win for me. But,
I'm going to second, because Beth and I was sitting there remotely in shock. Because we very often receive complaints of 2%. And I mean, we cut everything to the bare bones, and here with not blinking an eye at 4%. And when someone said, well, maybe we should make it 5% increase each, it was like, yeah, maybe we'll consider that. So yes. it
there's
was
a
very
safety valve, so
surprising.
it could be 6%. I mean, it was a lot.
David,
I am a numbers guy. Where are these numbers published on the Paytown's website?
They are, and today they came out for the finance subcommittee, but I got that email, so I could also forward it directly to you guys if that's easier as well. From yesterday. Yeah, I just got it as we were driving, so I didn't think that was appropriate to,
good idea. Thank you.
but I think that would be a good place to look, but those who love numbers dig in, because there's a lot to look at, and it's, we're coming into our own budget season, so it's a lot of extra work. So I'd love other people to get in there and take a look as well. It's encouraging. It's encouraging if people are up for spending that. I have lots of ways we can improve education for students.
I was at the last select board meeting for Egremont. When they suggested that our assessments might go up $700 for, residents, people were fainting and falling on the floor. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, yeah, it's.
My question is who is all for this 4%, 5%, 6%?
The committee who's working on it
There we
is.
go.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was not a
Yeah.
wide whatever. I mean,
It's
as we
not,
said,
it's
we
not.
were in quite a bit of.
Yeah.
I think that please don't misunderstand. I think the concepts of the assessment formulas are very interesting and well thought out.
Mm,
The suggested numbers are very different between the districts, and so it's coming out in a very interesting way. I'm just saying, I still think we should do the homework on what the assessments could look like and what that would mean to the towns. I was just a little surprised by a couple of things. So I think it's something that people should dig in and pay attention to. There's lots of information and lots to look through, and very detailed reports. There was a transportation report that came out.
Yes.
It's 54 pages, or you got to dig in that and take a look.
please. I mean, this is, we're elected or written in for large numbers of people. And that's why, having people who know finance, it's really going to be critical, because I really want to emphasize what Beth said. The difference between them going through a whole bunch of different approaches to try to make it fair, and the actual numbers that they were putting in.
Yeah, I would disregard the actual numbers because we don't know those.
It's all
Anybody who's saying
supposition.
that's right, so that's not the important thing. The important thing is just looking at the assessment formulas, but they had, this particular group of people was pretty generous with their assessment numbers, so I'm for that. I would also say that, so last week alone, I met with the visioning planning team, we had an operations subcommittee, we had a full board meeting, we had a visioning focus and group meetings, we had a finance committee, and we had community outreach, so that's just probably roughly about 10 hours of time. People need to understand the commitment that is. It's a lot of time that are devoted to that. Worthwhile, you gotta be present, but it's a lot of time. I'm working, as you know, I'm a board of directors member for the Mars board. And we are trying to incorporate or revive the Rural Schools Coalition that was started years ago. One of the suggestions was to, because the representation has changed, and I think we've actually lost some representation or a vote or a voice somewhere in the restructuring
Yes.
of the political landscape out here. So one of the things, I don't know if people are familiar, when they were trying to pass the Student Opportunities Act, they did a series of videos for the urbans. And they were very powerful. They talked about, what was going on, what they were using the technology for, the overcrowding, complete opposite of what we have going on. But it did catch the attention. It was played by school committees and legislative bodies all across the state. So we're thinking of, and some of them were developed by the people who we are using for PR, actually. So I think that our PR team, in conjunction with support with Mars, hopefully is thinking of doing the same thing, telling our story as rural regional schools, and having that be something, especially as we're heading into the legislative season or the budget season at the state level, where, what we're doing with the funds we have in these schools, but what we need, what's different about being out here and the rural schools. And I think that could be a very powerful, so I'm hoping that moves forward. We also need to connect. I know Mr. Pignatelli called me about a variety of things, but we are going to need some special legislation for a couple of projects that we're working on. One would be our child care program, and one would be a solar project initiative that we have, because usually those are contracts that would be over 20 years, and that's not something that's statutorily allowed for school districts. So I'm going to be calling him. I made a lovely list of things to talk to him about. So we're starting to work on the FY24 budget. I can't believe I'm saying that. And starting to look at the beginning assumptions. As you know, we're always looking for ways to be as fiscally responsible as possible. So I'm attending the Mass Association of School Business Officials. I maintain my license as a school business official next week. They usually give us hints of what the assumptions for the state budget are going to look like. So we'll start to get those. And next time, in looking for more efficient ways to do things, we did our own transportation study. They did one with the regional planning board, but we had contracted first for our own internal study. The results of that will be presented at our next school committee meeting in public. So you'll get a copy of the report, and then in person, the consultant will come and talk about that. The second part is the solar project that we're working on, which requires special legislation, but looking at the numbers tentatively over the life of that project, we could save about $750,000 in energy efficiency. So, we're always looking for ways to do things better and more efficiently. And I think that's really important to note. And finally, we have just a lot of great things in the next month coming up. Check the event calendar. There's concerts, sporting events, reader labs, meetings. So we're hoping that people in the community will come back in and be a part of all those.
When is the senior center luncheon going
The senior
on?
citizen luncheon is going on. It is the 9th of December from 11:30 to 1:30. Yeah, I think that's what I saw. But yes, it is
Yes.
going on. Yes.
Yep.
I was just in the classroom the other day.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt and make a plea here. If people can attend, it includes our young people's entertainment, our high school, etc. I cannot tell you the number of people who stop me over the course of the year and say, I'm so happy you showed up at that. You don't have to be a senior citizen to be able to attend it.
Until February.
But I mean, there's Jesse, who should be told that people want to attend from the school committee.
So all the signups for the towns are going to the Sheffield Senior Center.
Well, we
you
never did
guys
that
as-
before.
You can tell me.
As school committee members, you can tell that,
Okay,
that you're coming. We left, some spots open for all of you.
so usually there's a table front and center. And it's a good time, people can come forward and talk to you, etc. So please, if you can come, you'll get to see our kids showing off from the littlest ones to the really big ones. And please, if you can attend, it's next Friday,
That's 11:30 to 1.
11:30 to 1:30.
What-
And if the
It's a
meal
Friday.
is anywhere near as good as it's been in the past, it's all our sports teams do all the serving, all the busing. It's just great also learning for them on
Beautiful
you know,
decorations, it's lovely.
jobs that, you could have. You get practice there. So it's a wonderful experience.
And the
Please.
food's great.
What's the?
Jim.
What's the name of it? Or
It's
It's
our
a
senior
senior
luncheon.
luncheon.
senior lunch?
So the senior center fills, it's always sold out. I mean, it's free, but it's always sold out. But, yes, please, if you can come, you can let Beth know right now. And I will attend.
Okay, fine, I'm coming, yeah.
I canceled physical therapy.
Who needs physical therapy?
Yes.
Get it spread along the Sheffield Senior Center.
Yes,
Mhm.
so we contact all of the towns.
Okay,
And have them put it out to people, so that, but we've always, the last couple of years, we've had this Sheffield Senior Center handle the signups. Because the year we tried to do the signups ourselves, it was overwhelming, because people would leave the messages at every office, and it was just too
We
hard.
did a central point.
Right. David,
So,
I had a couple of questions. This senior luncheon, said it's next Friday, is that the 2nd or the 9th?
The 9th, I'm sorry.
Okay. Just wanna
Yeah,
make
that's
sure it
next
was
Friday, yeah.
tomorrow.
No,
No.
next Friday, yeah.
And then one more question, you were talking about the the solar initiative, trying to get solar for the school, that it's usually done over 20 years. And that there's special legislation needed to support that. If we're talking about merging the districts in the next couple of years, does it make sense to spend the kind of probably $100,000 or something like that it costs to?
There's no cost to us, there's no cost. Because it's an offset, with the companies. So, here's what I would say about that. First of all, we have to know that that's gonna happen, right?
Mhm.
First of all, so that's a maybe, and if it is, it's 7 to 10 years really, before that really happens. Even go slow, go 5 years. But the reality is, nothing in this says this building's closing, so we still have to maintain and pay for it, we still have costs. So to me, if we're gonna save $750,000 and this building's open, why would we still not do that for all of the communities, whether this building isn't closing, it would only be partially empty supposedly.
and it
So-
wouldn't even be partially
I
empty
don't think
because
so.
there are very few classrooms in our buildings. I mean, I'm sure,
But the point
we
is,
take people on.
the building's not, you still wanna offset whatever costs, in a building, I still think it makes sense, I don't see any reason. not
And
Right,
I
so-
have to add that one of the most important thing that came out from the kids who took part in the gathering is they brought up how they didn't want to see what happened with Sorrels, what happened in Housatonic. They're very proud of this building. And they want to be sure, no matter what happens, that it remains a really strong, viable. And that was the students bringing this up at their gathering.
Right, so I just want to make sure I've got this correct, because this is not what I understood from the information I've read. You're talking about if the schools districts merge, then the combined this building would remain open and Monument's current building would remain open?
No,
'Cause-
they'd be building new,
Right, for $300 million or so, whatever.
well, that's a new number, but
That's a new
okay,
number.
but probably more accurate, but that would be a building here, but they would only be combining the high schools. Right, even if they merge the districts, they're only combining the high schools into the new facility, so the rest would be
Right,
here.
so half of the building would be unused realistically.
Potentially.
No.
And it's actually more than, no, because the middle school's down here, all the way through this time.
Yeah, there are only a few classrooms, as I said, that are high school only classrooms.
But we still have to pay for this building, so why not offset the cost for that? That's not going away, right?
Right.
We're not, so I just feel like that's still a win, no matter what we do.
That's
So-
for a discussion.
Right.
I mean, I think it's not.
Well, we'll be getting more information.
Right, and a certain more information would be important. I had to ask.
No,
It's a
no, no.
question, because that's-
No, and remember, all of these are just proposals. There is nothing that in terms of merger that is set in stone. All right, anything else?
December 15th, the next school committee meeting,
Yeah.
there's a
Mention more
holiday
things,
conference.
actually.
Just reminding you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that I wanted to say.
Mm.
So, thank you, Julie. For December, that's what she gets for being the co-pilot all day. So our December 15th meeting, we actually have a concert that evening. So I wanted to ask,
Oh.
if you would consider maybe starting a half an hour earlier so that we could do our meeting, do the, transportation report, which I think people will be very interested in knowing, and then leave. So those who wanted to attend the concert could go.
I know we have one person who will not be able to be here, but of those of you who will be attending on the 15th, just by a show of hands, could you make it a half hour early?
I'll probably have drop off.
Probably will, yeah.
Okay,
I work till 5. So getting here for
Yeah,
5:30 would be
I have a
difficult.
Concom meeting at 5, so, so I could do the Concom meeting here, and I'll be able to show, so, yeah, I
Okay.
probably can be here.
okay, so basically, except we have everybody, so go for it, 5:30.
Okay,
on the
so that's
15th.
great. The only other thing is, in keeping the conversations open, and we don't have to decide this tonight, but we were doing, and I'd like to get back to doing the community conversations with the superintendent. And I just want people to think about, what potential topics, or do we want to just have an open one where people are just asking questions? And usually it's better if we have some kind of topic on the agenda to get people to join us, but I just think we should think about scheduling one,
Yes.
moving forward.
Merger
Yeah.
issues.
Yes.
With
Okay, that's a
all
fun
of
one.
this information.
Yeah.
They were
I was
so,
gonna say that.
a lot of people think it's a done deal. They don't realize that it's not.
So if that's what you guys would like to have as a topic, we
Mhm.
can,
That is
you know,
what I
put
would
that
like
out
to
there.
see.
Me too.
Okay.
More community awareness of what's actually going on. Because unfortunately, with these merger meetings that they're all scheduling, they schedule it when people are working.
Mhm.
And the people, normal people are not available at 8:30 in the morning to come someplace, or 3:30 in the afternoon. Even the 5:30, 6 o'clock is very difficult for working families that actually have children in district.
Could
So-
you do the following? Which is, please, you're a member now of this.
Yes, I got my certification.
Yes, please indicate this as an issue to the
It's an
chair,
issue.
Lucy Crasher,
I will.
rather than it coming through you're a member of the committee. Yeah, please do that. Yeah.
we would
but I
definitely
think
consider starting 6 or 7. It doesn't really matter, whatever's better for families. We had started them at 6 to give people time to get home and have dinner and, whatever they want to do, but we just want to think about how usually the community conversation is where you can have a little more back and forth. We're kind of not being as well behaved as we should be here because we're, we should be going through the chair for back and forth conversation, but in that forum, that's a place where the public can have that back and forth in a more free way, so.
I have a sense of the group that unless someone wants to change, is that the
I agree
school
with that.
committee
Mhm.
would like a superintendent's forum
Do we need to
on
vote on
the
it?
merger issues.
No, I will just, and I'll find a
Okay.
date that's good.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I have to go back to. Yeah,
One thing on that, but I definitely agree that that's a good thing to do. But, as the community members have things to say and have feedback and concerns and so on, I think we need to have a mechanism to bring that to the district planning board so that there's a better, a better channel than going to all these meetings where people have a hard time getting to. A way to get more community feedback into the planning board. Maybe that means bringing the chair to the meeting, or maybe you guys can, because I know you're a member, Bonnie, and like half of us are members, I'm not. And I think you're involved with it too, Beth, so I think a way to get that into the board's hands and their eyes and make that part of the planning process would be something that's worthwhile to get more community involvement.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, you can ask.
but recognizing that the purpose here is to encourage as many of our parents, community members, to be able to attend, to freely exchange on the issues. And one of the recommendations, if you're attending, you might make the recommendation. Look, I think A, B, C, and D should be given to the chair of the regional planning board.
Yeah. It's a place to say, what do I need more of? What are my concerns? What are my challenges? What do I need? What information do they need?
Yeah, and I'm happy to, if we're talking about the meetings you're talking about here, Beth, then I'm happy to attend, provided it's at a time that I can make, because like I said, I come in here for 6.
Mhm.
Basically have enough time to go home, say hi to my kids, and
Yeah.
maybe stuff down a candy bar.
Okay, well, that's not it healthy. We have some snacks for you.
Well, I eat a protein bar a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving along, I just have to go back for one thing. I don't know if everyone who's new read the letter that was passed by the last school committee. Obviously, I've included it, I asked, we included in this packet because it may be something, it was not received positively. I can tell you.
How was that meeting?
Excuse me. The view was when someone pulled one phrase out of the paragraph rather than reading the full paragraph, that we were threatening to pull out of the regional planning board. That was never the intent at all. And I really, unless people have a passion to discuss it, I really would more appreciate that people would read it, look at it in terms of issues, and I would want us, obviously, no one's bound by anything, to discuss this issue in more detail. But I will tell you, it was not received well and clearly misinterpreted, despite everything we said to the contrary that we wanted to. Yes, Carl.
I'm glad you brought up that letter, because in fact, that letter no longer represents the majority opinion of this school committee.
Correct.
And so for it to be taken by anybody to be a statement of the current school committee's position would be a mistake.
That's why it's here.
Well, but we have to do something about it.
Exactly.
The school committee has to discuss whether or not they want to reaffirm that letter as the new school committee, because there were 5 votes for, and that means that's not, and those 5 people are still here, but there aren't 6 who signed, there aren't 6 current school committee members who signed that letter. And therefore, we could consider it a nullity, and I do.
No disagreement, Carl.
Okay,
So for the sake of time, what I wanted to do so that we could have a true discussion on this at the next meeting is I wanted to make sure that every single person had the letter, had the time to consider it, so that we could determine what action related to it, whether we're saying we're denying or whatever it is at the next school committee meeting.
So does that mean we get to rewrite it, send it again and watch their reactions?
We get to do whatever the will is. This began way prior to this meeting, where the decision was that we should write a letter expressing our concerns.
So I think,
So
it sounds like it's gonna be brought up for discussion so that if everybody reads the letter.
That's exactly
but
what I
that-
just
that's-
said,
yeah,
right?
right.
So read, be prepared. If you have recommendations, do not share them with everyone. If you have ideas that you want to bring up before the 15th, please send them to me. I will collate and have them ready for our next meeting. Do not copy all. Do not start a chain. I am not stealing Carl's thunder. I know that it will be dealt with. But please, if there are any of the new people who have not read this, please do that. Okay, moving on. We have Director of Curriculum, please, instruction and everything else, Julie.
Okay, so at our last meeting, your first meeting, you heard a lot of terms thrown around in the building principals, school improvement plans. And so my attempt tonight is to kind of clarify some of that educational jargon that was thrown around. I will get as far as I can. We can come back to this each meeting. There is a lot, but it seemed that the priority from last meeting was to clarify the inclusive academy. So the inclusive academy is a grant-funded 3-year academy that the state has put the money towards to support districts. And this year in the fall, we were accepted into the academy. And so this is our first of a 3-year commitment. And it, in the first year, is a planning year. So it's exploration and installation is what they call it. But it's essentially a year where their goal is to provide us with a lot of training to our teachers, to our administrators, to myself. And the focus of the Inclusive Academy is something called Universal Design for Learning, or the shortcut is UDL. So UDL is a best practice that is research that's been around for over 30 years. It is a structure that is put in place in order to support teachers in their effort of making sure that curriculum is accessible to all students.
Could you just do one thing?
Sure.
All grades.
UDL is done in all grades.
The teachers are getting trained across the grades.
We are starting with the high school. We are not starting full district. So this year, the training is for the high school, other than some elementary teachers that we didn't already have booked for math training. So because we have, some overlap in initiatives, we could not abandon our math professional development to do UDL, and that is a elementary initiative. So universal design for learning, what did I say? So research best practice. So the notion is that it rejects this one size fits all education, which is what all of us predominantly grew up with. And so the nuts and bolts of it is it's a very asset-based mindset. The mindset is that all children can meet the grade level standards if all the barriers are removed. And so what teachers are trained to do is to look at the standard, think about the lesson, think about what the outcome is that every child should be able to know and be able to do by the end. And then think about what barriers are there for different students to access this prior to teaching it. And let's remove all those barriers. So all children have access to grade level curriculum. Yes,
How can they remove barriers if they don't even know the students?
because what you do is, in general, people, right? So you know all the potential barriers that could be out there. So instead of trying to say, and of course you do know your students, but instead of thinking, well, I know this child needs this, and this child needs this, and I'm gonna hop around the room and try and interject in between, you say, I know this student needs this, and if this student needs this, it's good for everybody. Why should only this student get this? That's good for everybody. So when I'm planning my lesson, I have to think about the standard. Standard doesn't change. So if the standard is you have to be able to write a persuasive paper, you still have to be able to write a persuasive paper. But I think about what are barriers for kids in writing persuasive papers? Well, let's see, they may have fine motor skill issues. So I'm not going to say they have to handwrite it. They can handwrite it, they can type it. They can talk, text to, thank you, speech to text in the computer, because those are all accommodations. And I don't care if you need it or not, you have that option. You get to choose what works best for you. It doesn't mean only the kid who has fine motor skills doesn't have to write it. It means everybody has access to these options to be successful. Because my goal isn't, can they handwrite a paper? My goal is, can they write a persuasive paper? So a second thing would be kids struggle with organization of writing a paper. So I'm going to give them graphic organizers. I'm not only going to give Kim a graphic organizer because I know she struggles with organization. I'm going to give graphic organizers to anybody that wants it, because that is good for everybody. If they need to do research for the paper, let's say, I'm going to give them options on how they're going to get that information. I'm not going to say, you have to read this article and write a persuasive about it. I'm going to say, here are articles, here's a YouTube video, here's a book, all these different options. You can learn the information. All these are good quality resources. I'm only going to offer them good quality resources, but you can take and learn from what you want. That's how you remove the barriers, though. It's by saying, if this is good for one kid, not having these strict rules, then this is good for every kid to have the option. Not the only kid that's going to get this graphic organizer is a kid on an IEP. So does that make some sense? I mean, I could talk about it forever, but I don't want to.
Yes.
Yes, Kim.
First of all, I feel targeted about that comment.
I am sorry.
You want me to draw a little bullseye?
But what about the children who don't need that? Aren't you making it too easy for them?
That's the real important thing. I'm glad you asked that about universal design for learning. You're never lowering the bar of what needs to happen. You're actually raising the bar, because you're putting more of the work on the student and less teacher driven. So you're now teaching the kids to figure out for themselves what is best for me as a learner. Unfortunately, many kids get to college, they don't know what is best for them, and then they don't succeed. They don't know how to study for them. They were always told, this is how you should study, or this is what you should do. And so they don't ever learn those coping strategies. But the important thing is, the standard is the standard. You don't dummy down, you're working up. And that's why that's why it couldn't be, it's a persuasive paper and you don't have to write it. No, it's a written paper, you have to write it. So that's the difference between making it not challenging versus making it accessible. Did I explain that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Now I lost my train of thought. But the big thing is firm goals, flexible means. So we still expect high standards. You still have to meet the state standards. That is not negotiable. It is saying, I'm going to give you choice in things that you can have choice in. And so actually, there was a video that I showed to the high school staff at a staff meeting this week. And the analogy, it was actually a woman from Canada. And so she was talking about snow tires. And she was saying, you wouldn't say, you shouldn't have snow tires because that's going to make it too easy for you to drive in the snow. And so her analogy was the same with universal design for learning. You know, we're not going to say you can't have all these resources that are available to us every day, because that's going to make it too easy for you. That we're going to teach them how to use all the resources. We're not going to say, oh, you have to fail first. First you fail, and then I'm going to help you to help yourself. I have loads of videos I can send you that are really interesting. Because I can see I'm not selling, but I've got plenty of stuff I can share with you. So any other questions about universal design for learning? I'm sorry, I got completely off target.
Just one of the things I really love about this is particularly for the older students who are on 504s, is the fact that they see other kids accessing the very same adaptive tools really makes it, I think, much easier for them to be able to say, hey, we're all part of the same group. So I love hearing this.
And we use these adaptive tools in our everyday life.
Exactly.
Our GPS in our car, Surrey to give us information. So it's just the world we live in now.
I think it's great having dealt with students who say, no, I don't want the other kids to see, I've got to use this. So that's great. Nancy.
You know, when you get into education and college level and stuff like that, you're working, well, what I'm speaking as a severely women disabled individual who's also extremely smart, to have had alternative approaches to get information, to process information, and then be able, because I can write like a demon, but there are things I can't do. I can't read very well. My organizational skills, no kidding, aren't as good as they could be. But I learn orally, I learn visually, and if I see something I can do, well, I can tell you, working as an educator in college level, I need to be darn sure that my students can pass. And if I'm teaching something like equine nutrition or biology, which is pretty complex stuff, oh, wait, you mean I can teach this stuff with not being able to read very well? Oh, well, wouldn't that be possible that it's because I've learned all the different things that are available, including EndNote. That's on speaker, right? I want to be damn sure that my students pass and that they meet standards, and our standards in the college education level are very high. So the UDL it's a really useful tool both as an educator, or particularly as an educator. Never mind a great gift as a student from as a student.
Is that the conclusion of your report?
No.
I believe David has a question.
I did have one additional question. I looked over the thing you gave us last meeting, and under the units, universal design for learning, you said that the result is a more equitable and engaging classroom. How do you measure equity? Like, what is that? What exactly do you mean by that?
Equity means access for all. So if I have designed a lesson that every student in my classroom can access independently, I've created an equitable lesson. If I have created a lesson that only 5 kids in my class can access, then I haven't created an equitable lesson.
Right.
Okay.
So that being said, what about the ones that are more advanced in the, so everybody's equal, but you're not creating a challenge for the other ones.
Yeah, no, that's not, because
That's not true.
equitable,
I'm
I can see
trying
why,
to-
I can
Yeah.
see,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
You're telling me you're making it easy for
no,
everybody.
so the content is still here. I'm just saying that if Nancy needs it read aloud to her, she can have it read aloud to her. If Jesse loves to read, then he can read it to himself. If Beth and Bonnie find that they do better partner reading and talking about it, they can do that. They're all getting the same high content. It's just how they learn best, and they're making that choice. I'm not saying, well, Nancy, you need to have it read to you. Oh, Jesse, you're so high, you can read this book to yourself. I'm saying this is quality information and you all need to know it. You choose which way you want to get this information into your
And
head.
a lot of times
Thank
they're
you.
merged, a lot of times they merge, so that's.
I'm just very cognizant of the time. So if you have questions. for
We
Julie,
can always set up
additional-
another meeting.
You, exactly, and you can contact her. She lives
Always.
here.
I do, I do, all the
Thank you
time.
so much. I really appreciate it. With that, Sandy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd love to just dovetail off of that because that just speaks to me as the Director of Student Services and making sure that the students with special needs and English learners have access. But I want to go over just a couple of things. I try to provide information every time in my reports. And tonight I provided you just with some information regarding the number of students who receive special education services through an individualized education plan. Approximately 18% of our population is currently on a plan. I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that we are seeing some increases in referrals based on some of the learning loss that has occurred over the course of time, where some students are struggling with social emotional needs. And I will tell you, attention is coming up quite frequently lately. But some of the services that are provided through an individualized education plan or a 504 plan to speak to Bonnie's language there is speech language therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, social emotional supports, reading, writing, and math support, social skills groups and instruction, executive functioning goals, and various types of consultative supports. There are so many services that are available here through those that are in our employ or some contracted services that we have. And we're very fortunate to always have had the support of the school committee and the community to provide those supports here under our roof. And I feel that our professionals who provide these services are available to all students, and many of them are doing response to intervention sort of tasks with students who have been identified with particular needs. We have a new mandate by the state of Massachusetts to provide dyslexia screenings to students in grades K through 3. So we are doing those twice a year now, and there's a kind of a very detailed list of assessments that we're giving, so that helps us to identify students very early on. I think you're probably aware we have Title I support people here, and a Title I grant that's overseen by Julie, and we're able to make sure that the students have the additional supports that they need. I do see everybody collaborating to work together to make sure students have access, and that just kind of speaks to the equity that we're talking about. I just want to say something very simple, and this is very simple. I have very bad vision. I wear glasses. If I did not have them on, I could barely walk to that door. I definitely could not drive. I would not be able to see you. I would not be able to read this computer. So you think about like the really basic things. And I just put these on. It's a miracle. I can do everything. If I didn't have them, which it's happened to me a couple times where I've broken my glasses. I can't even come to work. So I just wanted to speak to some of those real basic things that we can do that just, make it equitable for everybody. That makes it equitable to me to be able to do what I do each and every day. So I just wanted to mention to you, we have hired a part-time English as a second language teacher, which is great. I proposed that a couple of years ago. We were able to find somebody this year. Her name is Laura Weiland. She has a great deal of experience working with children and adults who are non-English speakers as not only a teacher of English, but also a counselor and a leader. So I feel like she's been a great addition already. She's been here for a very short period of time. I think it's probably 6 days. But I know that she's already made some connections, outreach to families and community and bringing our students together. And it's been very powerful and very positive already. So I just wanted to mention her. And tomorrow, this is very, very important. Tomorrow is National Special Education Day. I need to recognize those folks that work with our students and just wanted to put that out there to you. So keep that in mind. Tomorrow is National Special Education. So thanks to everybody.
You extend, I'm speaking on our behalf, I don't think anyone else will object, the thanks of the school committee to the entire team on this
I
day,
will do
well,
so.
all days, but particularly tomorrow.
I will do
Please.
so. Thank you.
And is it possible, because this is wonderful, this part-time BSL, that we're able to do that? Do you think we could meet her?
I actually thought about asking her to join us tonight and I didn't, but I think you could absolutely meet her and I will ask her to join sometime very soon.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how others feel, but I think.
I'm ecstatic that they actually got somebody, because I know that there's been children in my children's class
Yes.
that have suffered because they've been dropped into them and not having resources to compensate for lack of speaking English. You know, the teachers do the best they can.
Right.
But
Yes,
it's,
Could I
I'm
speak to that
so
really
happy to hear
quickly?
that.
I want to speak to that really quickly because it's important, and thank you for saying that, Jen. So we have, we hired our longtime ESL teacher left. This, at the end of last year, we hired a full-time person. So she started and very unfortunately has not been able to be here for a number of weeks due to a personal event. But either way, she has been focused on the instruction and the testing that we have to do to identify the students. We all felt like something was missing. The students were very vocal about it. And a connection to them, the community. Laura, we're very fortunate. Laura has experience working with, like I said, children and adults and understand their backgrounds. And she brings something else to the table. And that's when I mentioned about the counseling piece. I think that she could even be a resource there with the families and the students. So yes, you're correct. And also supporting the teachers in the classroom, because you're right. It is a challenge, even though they've been trained in sheltered English immersion, they need more support. So I just wanted to bring that up, and we recognize that that's a need. The students have been very verbal, and I met with them about a week and a half ago and heard them. And fortunately, we were able to hire Laura a few weeks ago, but she's here now and just an additional resource beyond the ESL teacher role.
And that's absolutely wonderful, because it also impacts families' decisions in terms of enrolling children, so.
Exactly. And now I'm on a grant hunt.
Excuse me?
Now I'm on a grant hunt to really,
Right.
get her full time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let's, Lindy was going to provide us with
This isn't a standing agenda item.
Oh,
We don't, it doesn't need to be every single time, so
Okay.
tonight she's decided to, that she's gonna save it for the next week.
oh, because she called me earlier today, so she was, and we had
She did.
discussed. Yeah, so what we're doing is, again, because we have so many items, the idea is Lindy will, when needed, present a written report. And when we feel we need more information, she will be here in person. And I did not make this decision on my own, it was discussed with Beth and with Lindy. Okay, new business. Would you like to speak to the student issue?
So, in your packet is,
Next to the last page.
Yep, is a letter from a family who is asking that the pre-K tuition, because they live out of district, would be waived by school committee.
I have another child here.
They already have another child. I was gonna say, I believe they already have another student here, so this is a common.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
I have a question.
Well, we don't have a motion yet.
So,
Okay.
Okay, and we have a second. We have a motion and a second, yes.
So what is the tuition? And what is it, like, how much would we normally expect this person to pay if they were paying? And what does it cost us to have the student here?
The town pays. Not the person.
Okay, the town pays.
Well, there is a tuition rate and I don't, which is roughly around, I don't want to quote, but the last time I saw it was somewhere around 19,000. We have not chosen, this program has never been a pay program in this district. Or for many years. So we have chosen to work with our families and our youngest learners, because we know that if we start at a younger age, it avoids problems as we, addressing educational needs earlier is always better and for students and families. So our program has not been that, and typically in this, once you have accepted a student in choice, we accept the sibling. So it just so happens that the sibling is ready for pre-K, and so this is almost something that we would do on an automatic basis, but we have not charged our students in pre-K.
And particularly because of the unique situation of Sandusfield, Eric had this come up numbers of times, and it's a way to help a neighboring community that's not part of the district. Kim, comment, question?
Comment, actually, I know the person who wrote the letter,
Oh.
which is funny because she didn't attend this school. She attended the other district, and I find it great that she's sending her children here, and I feel that we should encourage as many people we can to choice into our district from Sandusfield or other towns such as Otis and surrounding areas.
Thank you. Do we have any other, Carl?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis.
go ahead, Dennis. No, you had your hand raised first. Go ahead.
The question I had was that this child is actually resident of a district. Okay, is there a reason why? I mean, don't they have the things in that district?
Their older child was a student here. So now the eligible pre-K student would like to come here. The family.
They live in
comes to school.
Sandusfield.
They live in Sandusfield, but they,
Right, but I'm saying Sandusfield is part of a district. Yeah.
most places are, but they're choosing, they're asking you choice.
Right.
But the schools.
Wait,
Sorry.
What's the question? Yes,
What's
they
the
have it, but
question?
they choose it. They would like to come here where their other child is.
Well, I guess I think that we need to be somewhat respectful to our taxpayers of our 5 towns before we get too anxious to take kids from outside the district. Period. Our taxpayers will be paying for this child.
just in one, we have,
I mean, I don't have a problem if you can sell me on that there's a special need that, out of humanity or something else that this ought to be done. But if it's just a way for somebody to, to take advantage of
Okay.
Southern Berkshire,
This has been
that's not
passed.
the case.
School choice is not, school choice is different. School choice is not, we're adding an additional classroom and paying an additional teacher and raising the bar for the taxpayers.
Right.
That classroom is already open and there's space. So we're saying this child, there's space in this classroom and the sibling is here. Our practice in Southern Berkshire has been to accept the student, the sibling when they're eligible. And it just so happens at this point is in pre-K, we typically, haven't done choice in pre-K, but if we do have the space, we would allow the child to come in. We're not adding a cost to this classroom's already open.
Okay.
all right.
I'm
Carl,
sold.
Is it, are you finished? If you're not finished, go ahead.
No, I'm sold.
Okay, well, I'm a little bit surprised that I find myself sort of agreeing with Dennis.
It's okay.
But isn't there a bit of a confusion about terms? On the agenda, it says, vote to approve waiver of pre-K tuition. And we're not talking about waiver of tuition, are we?
We're not really, and this is the topic, the way it's always.
So that's not what we're talking about. We're not waiving the tuition for this young
We're not charging a
person.
tuition.
We're not charging tuition. What we're really talking about here is, so the agenda should read, except for school choice in pre-K, this student. And by
Because we
saying it,
typically don't do
by
that.
saying it that way, we've eliminated any confusion that anyone might have, which
Who made the
Dennis,
original
Dennis,
motion?
I seconded, I don't know who
Who
made
made
it.
the Art did?
Yeah,
So
so,
can we restate the motion the way, if you don't mind, Art, restate the motion? Are you okay with that, Art? All right,
well, okay, I would
okay,
say,
Carl, restate the
move
motion.
to approve, school choice for pre-K student, is it McKinley Holland?
Yes,
And I'll second her. Okay, so
Thank
but I think it's important, I mean, I said what I had to say, except that I think it's important to eliminate the confusion that I think Dennis rightfully had, that we are giving up tuition, and then the question becomes, why are we giving it up? But we're not giving it up.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for restating the motion. I'm very cognizant of time.
I have a question, so to do.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear about this, because I thought I heard you say earlier that if we don't approve this motion, then the student's town rather would be expecting to pay us something like $20,000.
if you were, I was just talking about a tuition rate for children who come from, let's say, Mount Washington, right? We get a fee for a student. You asked me what the tuition rate would be
Right.
if we were charging a tuition. We're not charging tuition in pre-K, but if we were charging at a difference for a different community outside of school choice.
This is school choice coming in.
It's
this
what
way.
we do school choice, not a
Right.
tuition, really.
Right, so this person from another district who comes,
It's a different law.
Right.
School choice is a different law.
All our schools have school choice in our area. That's why our members can go over to Berkshire Hills can come here, Farmington River can come here, or children. So it's one big circle.
right, so we're not passing on $20,000
No.
to get out of our budget,
No.
because the
No.
school's already in a
No.
financial crunch, and
We
that's an
have-
important consideration.
We have the answer to that. No, I'm just doing it because I'm really cognizant of time. So the answer is, we're not losing money. We are accepting, we would be accepting a school choice student
At the pre-K.
at the pre-K.
Because we have space.
Okay,
Kyle had a question.
That's fine.
You sure?
yeah,
Yeah, it was only gonna be like, are we the language of waiving it is because maybe this district has the ability to charge if they wanted to.
You
Right.
could, I mean, there are
Yeah,
programs.
so
that
like
we choose.
in essence, you are waiving it if you're legally allowed to do it. To charge the tuition, right?
Right.
However,
It's
the way Carl restated the motion eliminates that issue completely.
Sure.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm impatient sometimes, don't mean to catch up, sorry. So we can get the, whatever, it was $20,000 for the student, but we just don't. We're in a financial crunch. Why isn't that even on the table?
Okay, who said? It's not like,
You said that we could charge upwards of $20,000.
I said, that if you're asking what the tuition rate is for students that have been out there, that's right. This district, for a longstanding practice, has chosen to have a pre-K program, long format, that it is not, we do not charge for pre-K.
Right.
It's part of what we decided as a community, as a school community. And it was to provide access to our youngest learners to get the services that they need so that we're ahead of the game for our families, right? There's a whole host of reasons why we've made this decision. So we could revisit that discussion, but at this time, we do not charge for our pre-K program in Southern Berkshire. Other
This-
people can have a long discussion about that at a different space, but it's also not. We're not saying that. I think in the long run is probably saving us money in programs and supports by addressing, getting these kids into the system and helping them access any learning early.
Sandra,
Say something. I oversee the pre-K programs. So when we get this request, and we've had several requests, I think probably 4 this year. The parents already have children who have school choiced into the district, for which we get the school choice funds. So in these cases, we, as a practice over the past few years, we have said that if we have space, we will consider requests to allow age eligible children of families who already have children who have choiced in the district access to our pre-K program. As soon as they go into kindergarten, we are eligible to receive the school choice funds. If they happen to receive special education services, we get additional funds for them to cover the cost of the services. So from my perspective, we have space. As Beth said, there's not additional cost to us because we already have the open programs and there's space available. And it just builds our enrollment. So in the long run, I think what we've decided as a school district that this is a benefit to us. And it is good for us to have programs that are full and accessible to our youngest learners. So I just wanted to add that.
I just want to add, I mean, that was perfect, but just to add one thing, it has been the practice of the school committee over years of encouraging siblings not to have to be separated. We accept them. We also are not, and that's what, this is not costing us anything. If anything, we gain by the fact that once this child, as Sandy said, enters kindergarten, we then start getting choice funds. Additionally, it's clear that the parent has decided to keep their other child here, so we're getting school choice money in that way. The humanitarian way, and I had to be convinced initially years ago, is that we're encouraging families to see us as a welcoming community where the children are accepted. We encourage siblings here. So the bottom line, now that Carl has revised our motion, is I think we're ready to take a vote on that as we're getting close to 8 o'clock and we still have a lot to do. Seeing no objection, Nancy?
Yes.
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 9-1. You can inform the family. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving ahead. I would say if anyone wants to take a 2-minute break before Carl educates us, if you want coffee or tea or the bathroom or water, let's take. And get back here within 5 minutes, please. Carl Stewart, our rating expert.
Well, let's not go overboard.
Please, let's be respectful of time.
No, and I'm going, and I.
No, not only your time, I'm saying.
No, I know. An hour ago, I decided that I was gonna make this very, very brief, and I'm gonna start by telling everybody here that if you have questions about the open meeting law, feel free, and I won't regard it as an intrusion, to send an email to me. Now, in keeping with this open meeting law discussion, remember, if you send me a question don't send it to every other member of the committee. At a maximum, send it to only 4 other members of the committee. But I suggest that you don't do that, that you can send any question that you have, and if you think it's frivolous, if you think it's a silly question, it very well, it probably is not silly, because if you have it, then it's almost certainly meaningful. I want to start by saying that some people look at the open meeting law and they say, oh, this is just more government interference. But the fact is, there's a real reason for it. And I tend to be an absolutist on the open meeting law, and I take it seriously. But the reason for it is, and almost every state has something like our open meeting law. Massachusetts open meeting law is much more consumer citizen oriented than that of many other states, and that's not difficult to understand because Massachusetts leads the way in a lot of those things. But the purpose is, and the overriding purpose, and really the only real purpose is that government action not be taken behind closed doors. That the average citizen and every citizen has a right to know what their town, what their city, what their state is doing with respect to making rules. And that's why we have an open meeting law. You can't do it except in very limited circumstances. Executive session, you can make decisions that are not made in the open. So that's the purpose, and it makes sense, and it's a good thing, I think. So I have a couple of words of advice. One, you're supposed to read the Attorney General's manual on the open meeting law. Read it. I mean, it might seem that it's not particularly useful, that it's government speak. Read it. You read it for 2 reasons. One, you should know what the open meeting law is, and it's a well-written document, I think. But 2, if you're ever faced with a complaint and you're asked, did you read the Attorney General's manual on the open meeting law, and you haven't, if you say yes, you're lying, and if you haven't and are honest and say you haven't, that's not going to be looked upon kindly. So we know that you should read the open meeting law and sign the document do you have it in your office? It's online, that you've read it and you certify that you've read it and you understand it. So that's important to do. Another thing that's important, the Attorney General talks about you can't deliberate, but a deliberation. Is the new Attorney General a woman? I was going to say in her mind. I mean, it was more. Who was it? I think it is.
I think it is one.
Yeah, I think it is. In her mind, deliberation does not mean what you think it means, or what most of us think it means. It does not mean should we get a pizza margherita or a pizza quattro stagioni. That is a deliberation. But a deliberation is a discussion of an issue, not what should we do about this, but by deliberating, it's a very large basket of what constitutes deliberating. So that means that more than a quorum of us, or more than a quorum of subcommittee, can't discuss in private almost anything relating to school committee business. They can discuss, is the meeting at 5:30 or 6? That's okay, because that clearly isn't a deliberation. Can you get, my car's at the repair shop, can you give me a ride? That's okay also. But you have to be very careful about what you do outside of this meeting, which has been properly noticed, or any meeting that's been properly noticed. One more thing, you're not always, 2 more things actually. The Attorney General will not come out of the Attorney General's office, and there are lots of people looking at these things because lots of complaints are made because people are litigious, and sometimes people like the power that being able to make a complaint gives them. So it's very important that your violation, let's say you violate the open meeting law, that your violation be innocent rather than intentional, because the Attorney General will look kindly or more kindly on you if you make an inadvertent or an innocent or a stupid even violation of the open meeting law rather than an intentional one. So that's important to keep in mind. I mean, you should not live in fear that you're going to violate the open meeting law, but if you do inadvertently, make sure it's inadvertent. And finally, you do go, and this is my last point, and again, I welcome your questions by email. I have I don't have any problem with that. I'm more retired than not. I have, yeah. So, you're not always a member of a governmental body that is subject to the open meeting law. And that is and we've had discussions about this. We've had discussions about this for years and years. You can go to a meeting as Jim DePisa, private citizen, not school committee member, not select board member. You can go to a meeting and not be subject to the open meeting law. If you feel comfortable, more comfortable, making it clear to the meeting that you're attending, saying, I am here as a citizen of the town of Egremont or the town of Monterey, whatever it is, just to make it clear. But being in attendance at a meeting, at a governmental meeting, that where the meeting, that the people holding the meeting are subject to the open meeting law, that doesn't mean you are because you're there. You're almost certainly not. That's it.
Would you speak to the whole issue which Dennis brought up to me first years ago of chain violations?
Oh, yeah, okay, well, that's right.
That happens a lot.
It happens a lot. And the fact is, a chain violation is you're speaking to two other people. You have an email communication, two people. Well, the school committee is 10, so a quorum is 6. And so the 3 is less than a quorum, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter if you say, okay, CC to 3 other people, and then your 3 becomes 6. So, or the next day you think, oh, I should have sent this to these 2 other members. And then you go over the quorum limit. And then what you've done is, even though you're not doing it at the same time, even though you do one on Monday and one on Tuesday and one on Thursday, you've violated the open meeting law by communicating with more than a quorum. And one thing that I just thought of, and I'm not sure what my position is on it, but I think it's something we should be aware of, and that is social media. So many of you, maybe even the majority of us are members of Facebook or Twitter or something. You could say something about something that goes on in this meeting. And I don't have an answer to this. I really don't know. In fact, I don't think it's really been considered. But let's say that six members of this committee are Facebook users. If you say something about if you deliberate, whatever you take that to mean, if you deliberate on Facebook, you say, went to a school committee meeting 2 nights ago, and this is what happened, and now don't you think it's outrageous? Well, if 6 other people are members of Facebook and they read that I think that could be reasonably considered a deliberation. So my advice on this, even though this is an issue that I really don't think has come up, and I talked about it with two of the lawyers who are the main legal eagles, whatever they call them, of MASC. And they said it was an interesting question, and it is. So I would say, out of an excess of caution, don't talk about school committee business on Facebook or Twitter or Insta or any of those. Just don't do it. You can find yourself, I mean, the good part about it is it's totally inadvertent. and probably nothing would happen. And somebody has to find out about it and somebody has to make a complaint, but it can happen. People like to make complaints. Don't we know that? That's happened, hasn't it?
And we have, just to add to it, we have faced Attorney General charges because somebody turns somebody in for things, and you wind up with an investigation. We wind up with having to get
Pay legal
lawyers
fees.
involved and paying legal fees. And the thing is, even if you agree with somebody debating on Facebook or friends of whatever, don't. I avoid it like anything.
Yeah, you really.
Don't take a chance. Let me just ask you a question, because this came up, someone asked me about it. If someone can someone on the school committee, without identifying a school committee, let's say I'm a citizen of New Marlboro, write a letter to the editor on, let's say, the issue of the merger? Or is that something that could get the individual in trouble?
What, well,
Or any
I feel a little bit uncomfortable being held out as the expert. The fact that I may know more than anybody else sitting in this room doesn't make me an expert. You know, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed.
Right, exactly.
But,
Right.
why do you think that might be a violation? You're writing a letter to the editor, whether you're doing it as a public citizen or not. Let's say you're doing it as a school committee member. Why would it, and school committee members have done that. I've seen
I've
school
done it,
committee
exactly.
members write to the Berkshire Edge, the Eagle.
Mhm.
Why would that create a problem?
I don't think it does. I just wanted.
You mean the fact that seven members of the school committee could read the letter?
Yeah, that's not a violation.
No, that's not a violation. It's not a problem.
Right.
But we can't take this too seriously.
Mhm.
And, you know, be afraid that we're gonna violate it. You'll probably know just by common sense when you're violating it, if you do, which
And
you
if
don't.
you think could be violating it, you probably are.
That's true. Yeah, that's a version of what I just said. If you think you are, you probably are.
Thank you, Carl, so much.
Let David ask us
Oh.
one question,
If I'm
please.
emailing you questions.
Yeah.
Do I email it to your school email, c-stewart@sbrs?
Yeah, Beth and I just had a discussion about that. Apparently there's an issue, but I'm gonna straighten it. Chris Thompson and I are gonna resolve it, hopefully tomorrow. So yes, use
Okay,
much better to do that.
yeah,
Yes.
I think so too, but.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
We have been,
Opinion.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we are going to straighten all of this out. I thought Kim was like off in one land. There seems to be a problem, and we have to resolve it, because as I mentioned earlier, we've been advised by counsel, because anything we write can be brought into court, that we only should be using for our R.S.D. emails for anything related to the district. So, thank you,
Okay.
and I'm going to call upon you, and thank you for helping me the other day to decide what to do. All right, if you go, I have a couple of changes already, but if you go to the very last page, you will see the assignments, and I'm going to preface it by saying this. We have 5 people who are involved in the regional planning board. So I really tried to take that into consideration in making assignments. Also, I had more than one person say, you know, they really would appreciate support in terms of what they do. So I spoke to Sarah, she's willing to take on finance. Kimberly, I'm adding you to that committee since we spoke, and I'm going to take you off community relations.
I don't think that would have been good.
You're okay with that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then also I'm taking you off of policy and putting you on buildings and grounds.
Thank you.
Since you requested that, so the change. Sarah has agreed to take on the finance committee, and which is really, we're a major league into finance now. Carl has agreed to help mentor her with this, Dennis as well, and what I what I suggested is so much of this is led by Beth in terms of what we have to do, the whole calendar. So you will not be left out there hanging down. And we'll get whatever done that we need to. Nancy has agreed to take on community relations with help, and we will give her help as needed. Dennis is taking on policy, and I spoke to Kyle about working there in terms of policy, given his background, so that we have the support. We're really gonna have to help each other through all of these committees because we have so many new people. Personnel and negotiations, that's pretty standard. The chair is chair of it. And Bob Kilmer, who was a Sheffield Select Board member, you have to have one select board member, and the towns selected him. Previously, for a 6-year period, we had Nat DeHollam from New Marlboro. Now, Bob has joined us. The superintendent's evaluation, Jim has graciously volunteered to continue chairing that. Buildings and grounds, Art graciously agreed to continue taking that on. And I have to tell you, that was the first committee that I went on, and you guys remember Vito Valentini said to me, you're gonna learn more by being on that committee. And you really do, because you get, I've walked the roof here, I've walked the walked the rafters of the TAC pack. You get to know our building, so it's a great, it's a great orientation, and there's a lot that you have to do, and Art will fall as needed. The curriculum subcommittee, the chair of the school committee is the chair of that, and Julie, as needed, will let us know when we are called upon. Our MASC liaison is Dennis. Dennis is also the vice chair of Unit 6 of the MASC, which represents our area. The ad hoc for executive minute review committee, the 3 people who are listed are 3 people who went through the training that we had to go through, how to evaluate, and we had to pick a lawyer for that, how to evaluate executive session minutes, and that happens just as needed. The regional school planning board, the warrant representative, we found out we did not need a full committee for that. So Dennis does his duty, and in the case of warrants, if for some reason Dennis cannot do it, any member of the school, he can call upon any member of the school committee to come and sign warrants in his place. If you are interested in being the backup, please let Dennis know and he can train you. I went through that training. Kyle agreed to be the liaison to the Eagle Fund, which only meets like 3 or 4 times a year, but I thought it was important as a parent to have somebody who can speak to that grant process. I kept my liaison to the Southern Berkshire Child Care, especially since we have legal issues I'm working with. Nancy said she would take on early childhood, and Kim, I put you as for our advisory, the health advisory. If that's an issue and you don't want that, I can see if someone else wants to take that.
What does it entail?
It's on we kind of started this part of COVID, so we have a public health team meeting that we call together once in a while with our community members now. Advisory, it could be for different issues. They've been looking more towards mental health. So we call together our local public health officials once in a while and just talk to each other about what's going on, how we can support each other. It's not a heavy lift.
And they have been so generous with their time and their advice, right?
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
don't
Beth
do it as
put this
frequently.
Together, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm saying for COVID, it was much more intense and very beneficial, but this is, this would be more of almost like an ad hoc, really. But it's a valuable resource.
That's fine.
And basically, if, like if let's say Sandy came to us and she said, look, can you bring the team together on issues related to mental health?
I'm the
That's
health
good.
services director.
I'm aware.
So, yeah, that's what that is.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay. All righty,
I have a motion to make with respect to this.
good,
Okay.
thank you.
I move that the list that appears as the last page in our agenda packet today, with the amendments made during the discussion and the additions and and I was gonna say detractions. I know that's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Changes,
The
yeah.
revisions.
Be approved by the chair. You have the power to just approve it. You don't have to take a vote.
Well, let's see if you get a second on that.
Maybe.
I second it.
Okay.
Okay,
Do I go?
all righty. So as long as there are no issues, just by show of hands, I'll take. Okay, great. This is approved. Thank you all so much. And now we know the problem that exists in the area. Please, when you get together for your first meetings, I think, Sarah, you're gonna be right away. Art, I think pretty soon. Dennis, I don't know what the issues are with policy, but please go over the guidelines, rules with your subcommittees as soon as you get everything together. Carl?
A quick question. Is the procedure for scheduling a subcommittee meeting to contact the net?
Yes.
Presumably after
notified?
we've contacted if we're the chair, after we've contacted the other members of the committee. And she will notice it and she will
Thank you
she will
for
go
bringing
through
that
this.
up. I forget that we have so many. The procedure is that the chair will poll members, because this is one of the things not part of open meeting law. The chair of the subcommittee will poll the members of the committee, determine a time for a meeting. Typically, you have the option still of it being a remote meeting, but typically we've held these meetings over in the Eagles loft, or some of them like personnel, et cetera, in Beth's office. And once it's determined a time, a date, and a place, and it's confirmed, then the chair notifies, thank you again, Carl. The chair notifies, and you have to check with the superintendent as well, because her availability is critical. The chair then informs Lynette, who will do the public posting. You will have to, at the first meeting, determine a recorder for your committee. All minutes, and they do not have to be extensive. It's a topic was discussed. This is the outcome. And those minutes then have to be approved the following meeting, and then the approved minutes go to Lynette.
You just back up.
Yes,
You do have to give Lynette the agenda. She's not responsible for creating the agenda, so you have to not only pick the time, but give her the agenda.
That's my next thing. You should take a draft agenda to the members of your subcommittee and see if there are any other issues that people want to be added to it. Again, with a lot of things like with finance, that's gonna be your total guide on.
We've already passed our one, so.
Right. Did I leave out anything else?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, it's good that you just mentioned that because I wasn't thinking about it when I was talking about the open meeting law. But Beth mentioned having an agenda, and it's important that you have an agenda. And if you discuss something that's not on your agenda,
Oh, thank
then
you.
you violated the open meeting law.
The one thing that you can do, I mean, there are two things that I have to bring up there. One, you cannot begin a meeting earlier than the posted time. So if everybody shows up at 4 and it's not scheduled till 4:30, you cannot begin it. That's one. Two, if something comes up that the chair determines on an emergency basis requires the agenda to be modified, and the chair did not have the ability to know the information 48 hours in advance, you can modify the agenda with a vote of the subcommittee at the start of the meeting. Otherwise, you've got the full agenda, and please, as Carl said, if all of a sudden somebody decides they want to discuss free pizza Fridays and it's not on your agenda, no. So thanks for that catch.
No, and the last thing you said is very important. If the chair determines that the circumstances exist to discuss something not on the agenda because it wasn't or couldn't, both wasn't known and couldn't have been known within in that 48-hour period, make sure that the minutes say that you state the chair is determined that so and so.
And that has happened. I mean, when we went, Art was really great about it. When we went through the issues related to the Egremont School, we got notification of like within hours of a meeting, and we had to change. Dennis and Art worked together, so be aware of that. Beth, anything you want to add to that?
I was just gonna, in your school committee, while you were chatting, in your school committee handbook that you designed, I wondered if there was a section on subcommittees and how that people could refer to.
Yes, and actually, when I wrote the good part of
I was
that,
gonna say.
I think I remember it.
Yeah.
But there were, people didn't turn anything, a lot of things for that section. So I'll look at it again, but that's a very good one. Look at the handbook that was distributed. Thank you. My brain did. Do we have any subcommittee reports? Okay, seeing none. All right, under future agenda items, one, we have Julie with a presentation. Right? At a future meeting on the additional on a universal design. Or whatever, you just let me know.
Okay,
All right, and we're hoping that we could have the new ESL person.
I'm sorry.
You
I was looking at an email, sorry.
Sandy, that we could have at a future meeting.
Yes, I don't know if it'll be able to be the next time, but in January for sure.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, so we have that. And we have, I'm gonna prepare the blurbs, and I'm gonna put on that for the 15th. We should have together a message, like a holiday New Year message from the school committee to the community. So I will like to have that on the agenda.
The 5:30.
Right.
Oh, right, yeah, you probably should send out a reminder shortly before.
It's gonna be on, it'll be on there, but
Anybody else at this point have anything that they want to? If not, just let me know, because I meet with Beth prior to a meeting. You see a list of all of, it's always listed next school committee meetings. So I would say plug those into your calendars as soon as you can. And
Move to adjourn.
entertain, thank you.
Second.
Okay, by a show of hands. Oh, you don't want to adjourn?
Here, let's free.
I think they.
Don't want, you can stay.
8:20, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much.
I have a question for everybody on the